Welcome all. Well, first of all, good to mention this is also new to me, presenting in this way to a global audience. But I want to start with yesterday. I'm driving my car back home. I'm in a conference call meeting, and during the call, while driving home in the dark, my telephone starts to ring. So I'm in the call and I see that I have 3, 4, 5, 6, and more missed calls from my wife. I get a bit worried. I tell to the people with whom I'm in a call that I have to leave the call because I really have to call my wife to understand and hear what's going wrong. At that moment, she tells me that she can't enter our home. The door is locked and the key, a traditional metal key, isn't working. Apparently, somebody left the keys in the door inside and we're stuck outside of the house. Half an hour later, I'm back home and with my wife and my 2 children, we sit in the car waiting for the locksmith to open and break the door. The locksmith arrives and with some traditional materials, within 30 seconds, he can open my door and I'm in. Well, in the end, I'm happy that I'm in, but actually this happened now 3 times in the last 6 months. I have a traditional lock and there are a lot of opportunities out there in the market that can provide me with a smart lock and prevent me having this problem over and over again. Today, I'm going to talk about PropTech and the trends in the real estate industry. But I was wondering myself, how can I give this lecture to the world and still have a traditional old home myself with old locks, not making use of all the advantages that technology is giving us? Probably that's because maybe in my mind, I'm already too traditional. These are topics I'm going to talk about today. My name is Sander Grunewald, and I'm a partner within the KPMG real estate advisory practice. I'm also global responsible for our real estate consulting practice and responsible for the Netherlands real estate practice. I focus on strategy and operation engagement, including digital, for construction companies, developers, investors, financiers, owners, and occupiers. Over 18 years of experience, but over the last years, mainly focusing on digital and the trend of digitalization for the real estate and construction industry. That's why I'm also very happy to share my thoughts, our thoughts, during this 30 minutes. If there are any questions, please, you can type them. And in the end of my presentation, I will see and answer a few of the questions. Today, I'm going to talk about the challenges and trends that we see in the sector. I want to deep dive in a few and also want to finish with a bit more future forward. If we look at the industry, both construction and real estate, it's ripe for disruption. A lot is happening, a lot is impacting the industry. Probably during the day already a lot of these trends have been mentioned, so I don't want to stick to this slide too long. But around you see newspaper headers that we found over the last 2 days. About last 2 weeks. It's about sustainability and green. It's about the nitrogen crisis in Netherlands. It's about construction costs. It's about increasing cost of materials, but also slow product delivery, and delays. So a lot of topics that you can read in this slide are creating a storm. I wouldn't say a perfect storm, but a storm for the real estate sector. And a few of them we will touch upon today. Based on our research and based on our clients, we aim to have a wide view on the market and provide a broad perspective of key industry trends. And we look at these industry trends not only from the asset point of view, but also from a real estate organization point of view. So both from the assets, the real estate assets, but also looking at the impact that all the trends have on the real estate organizations. I will get back to this at a later moment. I'm not the only one that looks at trends for next year. Just over the last couple of days, I thought these two, which is from PropTech Online, but also from Anthony Slumbers, most of you might know him, and they both published trends for 2020 or trends for the next years. And actually also today in the Netherlands, which is just a bit too late, Vastgoedmarkt launched an article by Holland PropTech, where also one of my trends was mentioned. But the purpose to show is that today we're talking about trends, but the whole industry is really anxious to understand what's going to happen in 2020 and the years after. And I highlighted a few that you will see are mentioned by these two sources, but also form kind of red line in the topics we discussed today, but also most of the trends we hear and see. And then it's beyond the startup mania. It's not about startups anymore. It's about a real core activity for the real estate industry to work with digital opportunities. Data it is. And it's about the business model of real estate companies being challenged. So if you look at both articles and also the article published today, this is more or less the red line in the trends and also mainly where we will deep dive into today. And of course, these are also recommended readings for you. Today, if we look at the top trends that we highlighted, I want to deep dive into 4. Digital and innovation for the real estate industry, the traditional business models that are being challenged at this moment, the impact of smart buildings, but also the impact it had with cybersecurity, and data initiatives. It's good to mention that as KPMG, we are pleased that we can support a lot of our clients in the real estate and construction industry with these topics, and we try as much as possible to talk about these topics from a pragmatic, real-life way, not being too much theoretical. The 4 I'm talking about today are also supported by the global research we do on a yearly basis and supported by our global PropTech survey that has been launched last October, a third year in a row. We start with digital and innovation. What we see is that over 85% of the companies we surveyed have a digital strategy in place. That's good news, but having said that, almost half haven't. We see the increase of a few percentage points from 52 to 58. So there is an increase, but I still get quite some requests of clients in the Netherlands, but also international from our practice, that are in the need of a digital strategy. Having said that, the really good thing is that the industry is now moving towards having a strategy in place and thinking about what do we need to respond to all the opportunities that are out there. My personal view is also that 2020 is going to be the year where it becomes more and more relevant. What we see in most markets is that we're moving towards the top of the cycle, and becoming and staying relevant in the market is becoming more and more important. And what we will see later is that by enabling the opportunities that digital and technological will provide to you, there is a lot of opportunity to preparing, working on efficiencies, etc. Then the question is why firms look to digital. And there's no one answer. We think that one of the reasons is improved efficiencies, cost reduction, and the third one, enhanced decision making. What we see is that indeed improved efficiencies is the key actor at this moment. But I believe, and what I see also with my clients, and that more and more it also moves toward more enhanced decision making, being able to make better funded decisions based on information. And what we also see, and I find that very interesting, is that 64 of the respondents put most focus on digitalization and PropTech collaboration around property management. Probably because it's a very intensive part of the business case, where efficiencies and cost reductions can be quite easily and fast being achieved. On the other hand, on the asset management and more strategic management, portfolio management, I believe that the enhanced decision making will come in place over the next years. A good thing of putting the effort also on the property management side is that that is also where a lot of data sits, to what we get a bit later in this presentation, but the data part is key in harvesting the opportunities of digital, and is where the interaction for a big part sits with the tenants. And this tenant data interaction piece can create a lot of value. And that's why I'm also very satisfied to see that in this property management part, a lot of focus of digital goes. Then very brief on this one. There is a growing engagement with digital. Sorry. Apologies. What we see is 95% of our respondents have a person in place leading the digital transformation, being responsible for the digital strategy. That's good. It has an owner, it has a leader, and it has these days a certain person within the company that you can put your finger at. But, and I think this is really, really interesting of our research, is that in 65%, this person isn't a digital or technological specialist leading the digital strategy and transformation. Most of the times, they still have a traditional real estate and construction or finance background. I think this makes sense. And it's also not a big thing, which means that what I see in practice is that the client calls us and they ask us, do you want to support us in shaping our digital strategy and help us towards the digital transformation? By nature, this is indeed the CEO or the CFO. But while working on this digital strategy, we pretty soon find out that you really have to start thinking about the culture in your organization and about who is the best capable in really transforming and bringing all the innovative and digital opportunities to the firm. And then we see firms that are able to move towards a more, how to say, people-driven change. So digital PropTech transformation driven by the people that are really enthusiastic to do this have a higher success rate. And the good thing is that you don't need only new people for that. Because what we find is that in most of the companies we talk to, there are always a lot of people really eager and enthusiastic to work on this topic. Then moving towards the next topic. Traditional business models are being changed and challenged. Property and space as a service, PaaS and SaaS. I don't want to spend too much time on this topic, but what we do see is that property and space as a service, as a new concept, or maybe not even new, is becoming more and more common. A lot of large investors and owners spend a part of their portfolio in experimenting and working on property and space as a service. In my view, 2020 will probably not be the year that this will change a lot. But it does show that the traditional business models of, in particular, the real estate investors, but also developers, is being challenged. And this concept has to be considered, and companies can't stay behind in creating a vision and strategy on what they want to do with their business model regarding property and space as a service. Then we move to the third topic, big data. Well, I think the trend of big data we already left behind this year or even previous year. I think 2020 will much more be the year about data in itself. We see data as one of the foundations of being able to embrace all the benefits of digital and of property technology. Our research shows that 53% has a data strategy in place that enables them to capture and analyze the right data. 29% then again has no data strategy at all. What we don't exactly know is what data the industry is gathering. What we do know is that there is a lot of data out there. And that collecting this data is not necessarily core business at this moment. Having said that, part, in particular the real estate investors, outsource property management, and with outsourcing these property management activities, they also outsource a part of the insights into the data. My view towards 2020 and the years that follow is that there will be more and more focus on who owns the data and how to get information out of the data. But in order to be able to do this, you will need to have a data strategy in place that, well, first of all, shapes your data process to best support the strategy of your organization. So why do you want to collect the data? Where, in what way do you want to process the data? and get value out of the data? Are you going to look at the behavior of people searching your website in order to rent an apartment? Or are you going to analyze the data of occupiers in a multi-tenant building? There are a lot of business cases, proof of concepts out there where data plays a key role to optimize the value, but even increase the value of your business model. Having a right strategy in place to work on that, I think, is key and a focus point for the next years. In addition, there are also the dark sides of data. Data privacy, GDPR, data security are all topics that are also part of the data strategy. For how many years are you allowed to store the data? Or do you have to store the data? Which data are you allowed to store, but which data aren't you allowed to store? There are a lot of laws out there nowadays that you need to adhere to. And also this is part of data strategy. And who is responsible for this part? Having said that, data, the process around it, and the strategy to optimally get the value and the benefits out of it is going to be key over the next years. And then moving to the next topic, although it has some relations, is the smart building and its cybersecurity. More and more, we create smart buildings. The example of my own experience yesterday driving home. I'm now considering to putting a smart lock on my house. No key anymore, no way to leave the key inside of the house anymore. But is it safe? How do I trust that only me, my wife, and my children can open the door? And not somebody walking by when I'm not there. Data security and cybersecurity is a topic we hear a lot on the news these days. But when I'm talking to my clients, often they don't see the risk, the cyber risk, really that highly impacting their business. And that worries me. If you look at our research, it shows that 48% is quite confident. 21% is very confident that they're cyber ready. Only 20% is not that confident. But one of the Dutch real estate institutional funds in the Netherlands mentioned, you can never be very confident on the area of cybersecurity. And actually, I tend to agree with that opinion. And I do have a concern with the outcome that presents on this page. Because, for example, if you design and develop smart homes, or if you have flexible office spaces, where a lot of people walk in and out and make use of the Wi-Fi, how do you make sure that all these people, smart, bright people, being in and out of your offices, aren't able, via the Wi-Fi, to get into your systems as owner or operator? Or when you develop smart homes, are you sure that all the data being stored from the families that live in the houses, in the homes, it is not leaked and being captured by people that want to have this data? So actually for 2020, I think it's definitely a topic for the market to have a cyber assessment and see whether you're really that confident and ready. And whether it's developers, construction companies, or the owners, I think some work has to be done over there. And then my last topic for today is about 5G and real estate. And then I'm looking a bit further than only 2020. Previous subject on cyber was not that nice, a bit scary, risk focus. This is much more about the opportunity. 5G, and I have to confess, I'm not the most specialist, but we have quite a few in my neighborhood. 5G tends to really create an opportunity for smart buildings, smart values, as the granularity of being able to capture data and connecting buildings, devices within buildings, becomes much more precise and capable of guiding you through a building, but also in a smart factory or in a logistics center. 5G enables you to create a private network where you can make your building, your factory, your logistics plant, your home even smarter and smarter. Well, this slide shows a few additional examples, and we're still working on 5G. It's not yet there. It is there, but not that much applied. But definitely over the next years, we do expect that the opportunities of 5G can create very interesting business cases for companies working with or within the real estate domain. So again, working on your digital strategy, I encourage to look at the shorter term, but also on the medium and longer term, where topics are data, people. Who do you have in your company? Do you have the right culture to really transform your organization? In addition, looking a bit further, what proof of concepts and what business cases can you create, can you consider? For example, taking into your mind the opportunities of private networks, of optimizing what you can get out of the data, and well, all the opportunities of that are being currently offered by the PropTechs that are out there and will be out there over the next years. I think for now, and time is up, this is what I wanted to discuss with all of you. I think the 30 minutes for me were really a moment of sharing my thoughts, my views on what's happening, opportunities, but sometimes also threats and risks that come with digital, but hopefully food of thought that you can and will consider moving towards the 2020s. Thank you. I first take some water, and then I see I have one question. I will read out the question. It's from Todor Velikov. I hope I pronounced your name right. Dear Sander, can you list one or two examples of how big data will disrupt the real estate industry in 2020, 2025? Thank you for that question. The doubt in the answer is in the word disrupt. Disrupt is a big word, but I truly believe that data, for example, on the front end, in the relationship towards the tenant, can and will play a really big role. Well, first of all, we still talk a lot about tenants. My belief is that over the next years, and it's already happening, it's much more about clients. Clients in your buildings. And to optimally provide service to your tenants, and in particular, if you move to concepts like property or space as a service, it's about providing the best service to maintain relevance in the sector in particular when economy is not that booming anymore. To be able to do that, and at least the opportunities are there, so if you don't do it, others will do it. Knowing everything about your customers in a, of course, GDPR, privacy responsible way of work, will give you the opportunity to really service and add value to your clients. And whether that's in a shopping mall, or whether that's in a office, or whether that's in a small residence, you will be able to tie the tenants and stick them in the process of your organization, not losing them if they move further in their life cycle. So for example, within residentials, if you have a tenant or a customer that goes from one phase in their lives to the other, being able, founded by data, to service that shift will increase the stickiness of the customer to your organization. That's one example. Another example is that I think that I believe that also, and that's more the decision-making part, that selecting portfolios and working on portfolio management can be done much better, or at least much better funded on data, if you support your decision making by real insights in your portfolio, combining your own data, your historical data, but also public data that's out there. Within KPMG, we have a global repository of data points that we can mirror on a real estate portfolio, and that shows really interesting insights on whether the real estate is at the right location. For example, corporate real estate. Do you have your shop or your store or your restaurant at the best spot based on all public data points that we can make available in the repository? So these are one or two examples of how data will really is going to impact the core processes of the industry. I hope, Todor, that's an answer to your question. I get another question. What type of, from Vitaly Gulik, I hope I pronounce your name right. What type of data can become too sensitive and be restricted by law? Sometimes, like GDPR compliance recently took place in the whole EU. Something like GDPR. Yes, GDPR compliance is about data privacy and data protection regulation. It's a law now in the European Union. And for example, and I have to be a bit careful because I'm not the specialist on GDPR in itself. We have a whole team with lawyers and subject matter experts on this. But in the end, you're not allowed to collect and process all data that you receive. There are restrictions on the data you can use, the way you process it, the length you can store it. But for example, also a lot is to do about Wi-Fi tracking in buildings and profiling. So, for example, what we could do in the office is put in a camera and and everybody has a cell phone that pings signals. And with the cell phone and the camera, you know who enters the building and where that person goes via the building. And if you monitor that day over day, you really can understand how I'm, as Sander, moving through buildings or through cities. Well, these things are not allowed in this way set. So, for example, you have to separate the name from the data. So there are specific ways in profiling certain types of people, but not being able to go back to one person itself. Key is that GDPR, data privacy, data protection, is a key topic to take into account when working on your data strategy, because not everything is allowed and a lot is allowed, but you need to know what and how to do this in order not to breach with GDPR and other relevant laws. I hope that's an answer to your question, Italy.